I'm clapping. I'm praising. I feel like I just snorted coke or something. I'm so excited. And I never did that before. For the record. For the record. For the record.
By now, I'm sure many of you have seen like these viral TikToks and videos kind of like memifying and poking fun at the megachurch universe.
You can't have that jet. I got it. Yeah. Let me make you real mad. Got two of them.
Why do you need a $54 million private jet?
We're not doing any kind of interviews right now. I'm in the book.
I just like to know why you need keep your hands off me.
Because I suppose for outsiders of, you know, that mega church universe, a lot of these videos kind of look more like a rock concert or perhaps the makings of a blockbuster movie rather than how we kind of picture or perceive, I don't know, traditional worship. I feel like a big component or contributing factor of this memification of mega churches is specifically a few of the ones in America. And they can kind of be summarized to these events that draw in thousands of attendees and typically have one very charismatic leader, topped with high production spectacles and aggressive fundraising.
There's 1,000 of you. I said close them doors. Ushers, close the doors. Close the doors.
Because of these like very over-the-top moments, I've seen many online kind of dub mega churches as a whole as the fast food of religion, easily consumable, crowd-pleasing faith, supersized for mass appeal.
Shark attack! Lost my leg. Boom, 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 boom. Please be seated. You guys sounded great. You sounded incredible at all of our campuses. Shark Week. W-E-A-K. We're all Shark Week. Life is about swimming.
Kind of due to this, it's created like a lot of conversations online about like the authenticity of these mega churches. And that conversation is not just localized to people outside of the faith. I've even seen many Christians having conversations about these mega churches and their place within the religion. Having conversations like, are mega churches taking over the traditional worship of many structured denominations? And the responses varied from, it's the fast foodization of the church, attractive exterior, but little substance. People want to be comforted and entertained. Mega churches know where the money is. Or, you know, comments like this that put the blame more on pastors of these churches. Mega churches aren't inherently bad, but almost all of them are. Pastors shouldn't be driving expensive sports cars or living in a mansion. That money should either be going to charity, the church's savings. I've also seen others raising questions like, have the core teachings of Christianity now just been simplified and turned into another product, another identity you can just buy? I think there's some genuinely really interesting conversations there. And even when I presented this video idea to one of my friends from my childhood who's been a Christian all their life, and I was like, what do you think of mega churches? They were like, honestly, Cal, I've never really looked at that side of Christianity too much. I think it's wild, but I guess as long as people are getting a month of faith and kind of like sharing their love for the religion, then it must be a good thing, right? To which I was like, yeah, I think that's a pretty wholesome diplomatic answer. But then I also had to just show them the video of the mega church people coming in on a roller coaster.
Man, that was amazing. Was that? Woohoo! Yes. That was so cool, man. Amazing. I mean, like when we did the turn, I did double loops. I did not expect a double loop.
To which they were just like speechless and were just like, yeah, I don't know. I don't know what that has to do with worship, honestly. Because there was no interesting overarching message there. I think it was just something like, sometimes in life there's highs and lows like a roller coaster.
Do I have any roller coaster enthusiasts in the house? Any roller coaster enthusiasts? I mean, I love a good roller coaster. You know what? Life is full of ups and downs.
So with that, let's explore this roller coaster of a conversation. Yay, look, we managed to crowbar in their roller coasters again somehow.
Woohoo! Yes!
And also, I feel I should just introduce myself. My name is Cal, that's Skog. Yep, there's nothing up with that. That's just our names. These are the typical types of videos we do on this channel if you're new here. So if that sounds like fun for you, please feel free to subscribe. And if you're not new here, hey, hello there. It's good to have you back on the channel. So what is a megachurch, Cal? Okay, Cal, I can confidently answer that. According to this website, by definition, it is a church with over 2,000 weekly attendees. Apparently, there's over 1,800 mega churches in the US. And also with that, a large amount of them are concentrated into the same area of America. Places like Houston, Dallas, Atlanta, and Los Angeles. And I suppose a big contrast with these churches are to, you know, the ones we may conjure in our head when we think of like a traditional churches. Mega churches look far more like a place where you would hold a arena tour rather than a place of worship, I suppose. Basically massive auditoriums with jumbo video screens, and on top of that, even in some cases, gift shops. Because we know rule one of the modern day world is everything needs merch, apparently. And to kind of like paint a picture or, add perspective of how mega these mega churches are, one of the largest in the United States is the Life Church, and the pastor of that church, Craig Groeschel, welcomes in, on average, about 85,000 people weekly. Or there's the Lakewood Church in Houston, which quite literally is an ex-basketball arena, which welcomes in around 50,000 people a week. And these places are the host of multiple activities every single week. Every single day has got something lined up. There's multiple services, essentially offering a whole lifestyle center for its supporters. However, since the boom in popularity with megachurches, which has been going on for, decades now, many have pointed out that they operate like big business and that they are commodifying religion for easy consumption for the religious consumer. One of the big reasons that people put this idea forward, that it is just another big business veiled or cloaked with the idea that it's religion, is a lot of the time the pastors or the heads of the organizations are basically living the same lives as the richest CEOs you can imagine, or I suppose like rock stars, because many of the most famous megachurch preachers are literally multi-millionaires multiple times over. Take, for example, this chap, Kenneth. Now, Kenneth is often described as a televangelist rather than a traditional megachurch pastor. The scale of his ministry, the campus, the conventions, and the thousands of attendees, whether that be in person or online, places him firmly in the world we're exploring today. You probably would have seen him in many like memified megachurch compilations. And the thing with Kenneth is I've seen like multiple sources value him at over $500 million, and along with that lives in a mansion, and with that pays virtually zero property tax because of his job. His empire owns multiple private jets and even maintains a private airport on his estate. Kenneth and his planes created that like hilarious moment.
Do you really believe that human beings are demons?
No, I do not. And don't you ever say I did.
Now, Oral used to fly airlines, right? But even back there then, man, it got to the place where it was agitating his spirit, people coming up to him. He had become famous and they wanting him to pray for him and all that. You can't manage that today. This dope-filled world, and get in a long tube with a bunch of demons.
But despite Kenneth's iconic moments, it's not fair to just put it all on him. There are others like this chap called Jesse, who has a tax-free 35,000 square foot mansion and also a private jet. It's quite interesting, isn't it? Like, it seems to be like a part of being the leaders of one of these mega churches also requires you to acquire a mansion and private jets as quick as possible. And by Jesse's own account, over the last 40 years, about $500 million have been donated by his followers into his ministry. It kind of makes you wonder where all this money is going, though. Of course, you would hope it's all going to a good religious cause, right? Naturally, right? You wouldn't want to think it's being spent on the leaders of these organizations' mansions. You don't think they're all doing it for the cause of the religion, right? Well, that's what you would hope. But then again, you may think otherwise, because in 2018, Jesse also asked his congregation to donate $54 million so that they could buy a brand new jet. And this would be their fourth jet. And the reason for owning a fourth jet, of course, is I really believe that if Jesus was physically on earth today, he would not be riding a donkey. In other words, Jesus would be flying private. No longer really sounds like a man of the people now, though, does he? Kind of more like a businessman. Which is funny, right? Because didn't Jesus say something along the lines of, it's easier for a camel to pass through the eye of a needle than for one who is rich to enter the kingdom of God? But this really does seem to be a common theme. Like, I also read this other article of another leader of one of these mega churches also asking for donations for private jets. What is it? Is it like an inside joke between these organizations of who can acquire the most private jet? Are they having like robot wars but with private jets? What is going on? Like, it turns out the number one buyers of private jets globally are mega churches. But because of these just like out of this world moments like this, it has raised many eyebrows, and in turn many critics have argued that some mega church pastors are actually using religion to fund their lavish lifestyles. And this major criticism of, mega churches operating like big businesses often ties into this theology called prosperity gospel. Basically, this prosperity theology teaches that financial blessings and physical well-being are the divine rights of Christians. And in plain terms, what this often means in reality is if you have a strong faith and donate generously, God will indeed reward you with good health and wealth. Due to this, preachers who push this idea will often link, seed faith donation to God's favor. And the idea of seed faith is if you donate something now, it will be multiplied and returned back to you in the future. So the pastors constantly ask people to donate to the ministry under the guise that it is a seed that will grow into personal blessings. But the result, as some people like to point out, is that the leaders of these organizations often get very rich with, their private jets, their mansions, and the followers who have donated, just regular people, perhaps like you and I, well, they're left just waiting for their blessings. I suppose an example of that outside of this conversation could be seeing your boss turn up in a brand new shiny car and you're still in your beaten up run down one that you got as a hand-me-down that barely functions and the windscreens don't go up and down anymore. Even the pastors that aren't actually asking for jet donations are still under fire. Take for example that Joel guy we spoke about earlier, who is the pastor of the Lakeside Church, which welcomes in around 50,000 people a week. Joel famously takes no salary from being the pastor of that church. But that doesn't quite mean that he lives a modest life. He's valued at around $100 million. How, you ask? Well, it's thanks to his best-selling books. To some, Joel turning down his, $100,000 salary a year doesn't really mean anything. They will still be making millions off their supporters through other means. And additionally with this, Joel has also faced criticism because back in 2017, he refused to open the Lakewood Arena as a hurricane shelter during Houston's flooding. But of course, he went back on this once there was a lot of public outcry. Also on top of that, he once did a post talking about enjoying the simpler things in life, which people also found out of touch because he's a literal millionaire. I guess to some it gave the same energy as when a rich person says, money doesn't buy happiness. And whether there's, some truth in that or not, it's easy to say those things once you have accrued a lot of wealth and you have a level of security that most people can only dream of. I suppose the case studies we've kind of looked at have only further pushed the perception that some megachurch leaders will prioritize wealth over charity, despite preaching about Christian generosity. Donate so I can get a jet. Our ministry needs another jet. No, we can't open up our arena for an actual humanitarian crisis. Of course, there's people that are in danger during the floods. No, we got to keep that safe. Can't do that. Actually, we will do it when there's public pushback. Another hot area in this conversation around how mega churches run is the whole donations thing. One of the clips that really did shoot into mainstream media was this clip.
There's 1,000 of you. I said close them doors. Ushers, close the doors. Close the doors. There's 1,000 of you tonight, and those that are watching, it's 1,000 that's watching online. This is a small seed. If I get 1,000 online to give this, if I get 1,000 in the sanctuary to give this, that's $40,000 tonight.
To which the comment section to this was just hilarious. People were like, wait, you're holding people hostage? And also, I suppose the obvious issue with this is just the assumption that everybody just has money to freely give up like that. $5-10 may seem like nothing to some, but for others will be what they have to live off for the whole week. So instead of the situation just being, worshipping their chosen God, it's now become making somebody feel inadequate because now they have to choose between donating to their cause or, eating that week. And this scenario could have just been avoided by not saying close all the doors until we get enough donations, right? Or this famous donations clip that also transcended into the mainstream.
That's only $1,200.
Yes.
Y'all not listening to what I'm saying. If you have 1,000 plus 1,000.
Okay. Well, I'm going to work on the other 800.
Well, that ain't what I asked you to do.
Publicly shaming somebody because apparently a donation of $1,200 isn't enough and it has to be $2,000. Suppose it's these stories that is reinforcing the criticism that mega churches have turned worship into a revenue-driven enterprise. To the outside world, I suppose these collections of moments make it seem nothing more than just another corporate money-making scheme, complete with just another never-ending merch line. Shirts, caps, devotional books, and even children toys. Some would argue this is faith packaged and sold. And look, I should point out that some of these churches will be doing extensive charity work, right? Whether it be funding missions, food banks, or, just general relief. But I suppose it's the optics of the preachers seemingly living very luxurious life, or, you know, putting on these grand events when many of their followers will be going without, can seem kind of jarring to the outside world, right? I suppose it's just the sheer contrast between Jesus's humble life compared to his modern day spokesperson. And that is why I've seen comments online like it's hard to take these people seriously talking about humility or asking for donations when they're wearing a Rolex watch worth 4 times more than my car.
Watching ESPN and I'm watching LeBron James. And he put his hand up like that and he had a white watch on. I went, oh, that look good on a black man. Wonder if that look good on a white man. I like that watch. So I got out my room. I went down to Kalakaua Avenue to the Chanel place. You know where it's at. So I started buying it. The man sold it to him. So I got one.
Now, if we were to put the pastors aside for a second and actually step inside these mega churches shows, and like especially via the clips that go viral on the internet, you would sooner think you're part of a Las Vegas show. The mega churches that have gone viral are known for like the sensational, highly produced worship experiences. I suppose that is what really draws in the crowd. You know, a crowd that has been conditioned by modern media to want bigger and better every single time, with Hollywood, with music, with just visual experiences, right? And now they can have it in religious form too. Presumably that's not just to captivate the attendees, no, but also so it can go viral on the internet and spread their message further, whatever that message may be. But due to this, I've seen people point out and critique it that some of these modern mega churches are blurring the lines between the sacred and the secular. And I think nothing quite captures this like that moment that has like pretty much just been dubbed the flying preacher. This pastor literally like zip-lined in from a balcony down to stage, strapped into a harness like they're on set of some sort of like action hero film. I remember reading online about this when the pastor was pushed on this and like, why would you like do this sensationalized over the top moment? Because, you know, some were saying it takes away from the messaging if you're just like flying around. They actually argued they were doing stuff like this to, you know, try and engage with an audience online and therefore bring eyes to their faith. Another moment similar to this, but I suppose where people argue that it's faith and worship being turned into a spectacle is this. This church called the Church of Rock has been producing elaborate pop culture themed Easter plays for years. And in one of them they did an Avengers themed Easter musical where Iron Man served as a Christ figure in the reenactment of the Avengers movie's climactic battle, complete with superhero Tony Stark resurrecting to defeat evil. But because of this, some people are understandably like, is this blasphemy or is this just adapting religion to the modern day world? Do you know, get, I suppose, the youth culture involved? Do we have to show Iron Man as Jesus and incorporate superheroes? It's like, I actually only care if you can make it funny and hee hee ha ha. But in doing so, is it losing its authenticity? And I suppose that's what a lot of this conversation is about. Doing the most, being so loud, trying to make it integrate with the mainstream media, does that take away from its sacredness and kind of miss the point of it all? The church's pastor, Mark Hughes, responded that they have been using Star Wars or Pirates of the Caribbean, even The Lion King and other pop culture icons in their Easter sermons for like 2 decades. And his rationale behind it was, in the Bible, Jesus taught that using cultural references of his day, e.g. farmers, fishermen, and vineyards, so Hughes says we're just using pop culture as a metaphor to tell the biblical story. Jesus did the same thing 2,000 years ago. I guess, yeah, but Jesus wasn't like zip-lining in on places and also making Iron Man him. I don't know, it's but maybe this is just the beauty of the modern world. And yeah, it may get people talking, but I don't know if it's in like a way of that they're actually acknowledging their religion. In my eyes, when I heard and saw of this, I was just like, Iron Man Jesus? That's random. I'm trying to look at it through the lens of maybe if I was really young me, would I suddenly be like, wow, I really want to learn about Christianity now? I think maybe what I would have done is been like, that's cool. And then realize that the actual part of the serious part of the religion, the non-sensationalized part, is nothing to do with Iron Man. And I'd be like, yeah, this just isn't for me personally. Nonetheless, I suppose these mega productions are certainly getting people talking and seemingly getting bums on seats, which I suppose means donations for the church. So I guess it's working. Long gone are the days of associating Sunday service with an uncomfortable collared shirt and having to sit quietly for a couple of hours. Now we've got flying pastors, Marvel battle scenes, and rock concerts along with Smoke Machine. I feel this is quite literally religion reimagined as blockbuster entertainment. And I think because of this, and if you're just like looking at the evidence, it's clear to see why the opinions on mega churches are so polarized. On one hand, these churches churches have undeniably expanded their religion's reach. They draw people in who may have never set foot in a traditional church, even if it is just to see Iron Man Jesus flying in on a zip line. And I suppose with that, you could also argue that these very charismatic pastors are clearly inspiring millions of people with their messages of positivity and hope. I've literally seen people online argue that any way that people can get people actually listening about Jesus is worth it. So through that lens, I suppose Iron Man Jesus was just inevitable. I suppose conversely, for outsiders who are not very involved in that world, it will just seem like the commodification of faith. Worship services that feel more like entertainment spectacles risk becoming more about sensationalism than about spirituality. And additionally with that, the heavy emphasis on like the donate, whilst interestingly watching pastors become richer can seem as exploitative. As I saw one person put online, mega churches reinforce the bad habits of consumer culture by turning religion into just another product that can be packaged and sold. I suppose it's when a pastor is telling people they're not allowed to leave a room until they cough up cash, or, donate so we can get a private jet. It is no surprise that is left many feeling disillusioned, right? With some even calling this style of, church, the mega church, the muck church of religion. Simplistic, fast on demand, non-stop, potentially at the cost of depth and sincerity. I do not doubt or refute that some of these pastors truly do believe that they are carrying out a divine mission, but I also think at the same time they also enjoy the luxury lifestyle and the wealth that comes with it. I have no doubt that the congregants truly do worship God, but they also must pay the admission that keeps that enterprise running. I generally do think in the modern day world where everything does just get commodified and packaged into another idea, that mega churches were always inevitable, right? Taking some like the key concepts of, that faith, that religion, and then just entwining it with the modern day world. We see this with everything. There's always this like extreme mainstream variant of anything, right? Whether it be with subcultures, punks and goths. There's the traditional way of being part of these things, and then there's this like new age modern version, and in this case it's instead of the traditional worship we used to see, now these mega churches. It's the bigger is better, it's the louder is more. And the ultimate question here with mega churches though, is this a brilliant adaptation, preaching the message of this carpenter from Nazareth while also being this mega corporate entity, or is it simply catering too much to modern day consumer tastes? And in turn, the message is being lost in translation. So with that, I'm officially passing the conversation over to you. What do you think about this? For better or for worse, is this the natural evolution? Or do you think mega churches are mega wrong and completely missing the point? I've been Cal, that's Skog. Skog, anything profound to say on the matter? Big boom. Guess so. That sums it up, I guess. I shall see you next time. If you're new here, please think about subscribing. That would be very cool. If you made it this far and you're not subscribed, though, you're a wild card. I like you. You're crazy. Subscribe. And yeah. Anyways, I'm going bye. If you're not new here as well, hello there. Okay. Goodbye.